Now, don't worry, because there's people out there that say I'm guilty of the same thing. We'll talk about that. But let me show you something about wolves in sheep's clothing here. First off, let's look at this. I'll start out here. How does this psalm, which is an acrostic on the Hebrew alphabet, notice the last verse of Psalm 119, which is it's all thy commandments are righteousness. All thy commandments are truth. How I love your law. Rivers of waters run down my cheeks because they keep not your law. Did you know that God's law defines his commandments? They define righteousness, truth. They're eternal, like God. Notice, I have gone astray like a lost sheep, but seek your servant, for I do not forget your commandments. He's failed. He needs mercy. But a sheep follows the shepherd. Yahweh is the shepherd. Sin is why we need salvation. And God offers mercy for sinning. But we don't forget his commandments. That's what a sheep does. He hears the voice. Jesus is Yahweh. Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. Jesus is the creator. What do wolves do? Do you know? I bet you don't know. I bet you think they teach works-based salvation, right? Is that what they told you? Let's look at something your pastor probably never opened before. Look at what the wolves do. Her princes in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. They leave not a bone till morning. Her prophets are insolent, treacherous people. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. His way is in the sanctuary. Did you know that that's true about Jesus in the New Testament? His way is in the sanctuary. He's ascended to the sanctuary in heaven. The one on earth was patterned after, according to Moses. Jesus is ascended into that sanctuary, and the Ark of the Covenant, which holds the 10 Commandments, is in the temple in heaven, the original temple made without hands, where Jesus is ministering a better covenant. In the original sanctuary where God dwells in heaven, where the commandments are in the law of his commandments are in the ark, in the temple, where Jesus is at the right hand of God, forgiving sins. But these wolves, what do? They do violence to God's law. Now, I get accused of that too. So just be sure you know what you think this means, because I get accused of doing violence to the law because I don't think we're going to do animal sacrifices anymore, or that the earthly temple's coming back because Jesus is ascended into a bed. So I get the Hebrew roots people saying I'm a hypocrite. They think I'm worse than the lawless, but they don't understand the fullness of the plan of salvation and what that includes and what it doesn't include, because they don't see the typology properly in the sacrifices pointing to Jesus. But it doesn't do away with his commandments. And so we agree on that much, at least. Matthew 7. He's interpreting the proper way the law of Moses. Ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. He'll tell the ones who practice lawlessness, I never knew you. And they're wolves. This is in the midst of Jesus interpreting the law for us. And by their fruits you will know them. And he calls them wolves and lawless. Are they works-based salvationists? Or are they people who do violence to God's law that he calls lawless? When he calls the Antichrist the man of sin who makes people worship the beast, and calls him the man of lawlessness, and that the love of God will wax cold because of lawlessness abounding. Here we sit on the cusp of the return of Jesus, and the majority of Christians think they're not under the law, which means don't keep God's commandments. And Jesus says, I never knew you, those who practice lawlessness. These false teachers are wolves. The Bible tells you what a wolf is and what a sheep is, and they follow him. This Jesus is this God. Who are the wolves? They're not the people pointing to the law and the testimony, because the saints worship Jesus. They worship Yahweh. They have the testimony of Jesus and they keep the commandments of God. Whose side are you on? Remember the Sabbath.